Hi guys, welcome to another episode. Wait. Scratch that. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Storytime Society. I'm your host Jamie, and I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad you're alive. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Storytime Society. The theme is you guys really liked the confessions episode, so we are going to do another confessions subreddit episode. So tune in, baby. Let's go. The title of the first story is My Wife Died Earlier This Year. According to everyone who knows us, it was quick. She went in the hospital that afternoon, died overnight. I'm the only one who knows that's a lie. In reality, she was in the hospital for nearly a week, but she hated people seeing her when she was weak and begged me to not tell anyone. And then a day later, she wasn't lucid enough to change her mind, and I couldn't betray her. Not when I figured she would be up in a few days and angry at me for telling. I told work I had COVID, so I couldn't come into the office and worked from home or the hospital. She'd been laid off recently with all the layoffs happening and had been quiet while recovering from it, so no one suspected anything. She was even in the hospital during my birthday, but I just posted on social media a pic of her present. Neither of us were the type to wait till the day of to hand it over, so I already had it, and no one questioned it. I sat through the worst conversations of my life with the doctors alone, but I truly didn't believe she was going to die. She was young. We had time. But I was wrong. An unexpected medical issue, and she's gone. No one knows still. I can't tell them. But I can tell anonymous strangers on the internet as I toast to our anniversary. So happy anniversary, baby. I'm nothing without you. Okay. Sorry. Not starting out this episode with the literal saddest little story ever. That's so sad, and I'm so sorry. This is from 7 months ago, but I'm so sad for him. Jeez. Some of the comments are saying, oh, damn it, losing someone is hard enough without having to navigate stuff like this. What a good husband to honor your wife's wishes, even when it caused you pain. I toast your anniversary. Please join us at r/widowers if you haven't already. So gutted for you. It must be nice to finally vent and get it out there, but I think you're doing the right thing. You made a promise to your wife and you're keeping it. Stay strong, and I'm raising a glass to you and your wife right now. I mean, you are honestly the best husband ever for keeping that like to yourself, knowing that that's what your wife would have wanted. And that's why I always feel like because we always read so many like inheritance stories where it's like, this person left me all of this money and now these people are really pissed off and are trying to fight for it. Like, am I the asshole for not giving them any? And I'm always saying, like, no, you're not the asshole, because I think that you should, no matter what the situation is, I think you should honor what that person wanted to do with their money, their assets, their life, how they wanted to be buried, cremated, whatever like they wanted. I think that should be honored. And I feel like sometimes people in the inheritance, specifically those types of stories, sometimes they're like, yeah, you should definitely share, blah 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 blah. But I don't know, for me it's like, I think that you should honor it, because why should you be the one to change what this person wanted just because now they're dead, so you don't have to like worry about them anymore or what they would think, I don't know. It never sits right with me when like people are not on the person's side about that. But we're going to move on to the next story. This was 4 days ago, and the title is I Quit Being a Muslim and Left the Country for My Son. This is a burner account, according to my wife, to keep anonymous. I am a 42-year-old man who was Muslim for all of my life. I have one beautiful child and had one wife. 2 years ago today, my son had been showing me signs, painting his nails, talking in ways I wasn't familiar with, but he kept it quiet. He knew where we were from. Being gay wasn't even on the table. So he sat me down, knowing that in our culture, being gay is grounds for exile and in some extreme cases, execution. He said, Dad, I like other boys. He told me I was the first person and only person he'd ever told. I can remember how he looked at me. He looked at me with such fear that it made me want to take my eyes out. I didn't want him to ever look at me that way again. I can't say I wasn't disappointed. I had always wanted him to carry on my beliefs in life and to have children who were also Muslim. But I knew as a father that I had an obligation, and I can't say for a second that I loved Allah more than my child. I would be sinning and lying to Allah and myself. So one day within that same month, me, my wife, and my son sat down with our family and said we were leaving for work. We weren't. We left the country. My father was vehemently against gays, against everything my son was. So I knew that saying a word would get my baby crucified by the community. No life, no job, no happiness. So we left. We got the money, the means, and booked a one-way to Canada and have been living there ever since. My son is now 16, and I don't regret what I or my wife did. I love my son, and I know he knows that. He's even got himself a boyfriend. I'm not sure about everything, but I'm trying. My wife hardly wears her hijab anymore, and I haven't prayed to Allah since we left, and may he forgive me. I don't want to. Slay. Honestly, slay the house down boots. That's what I have to say about this. Like, yes, thank you for doing what was right for your son, even if it goes against everything that you feel like you believed growing up. All of the societal things that were taught to you, loving your son so much that you are willing to open your mind up, and even if you don't agree right away, which makes sense if you're like raised in a community that is so against things like this, like I'm sure it can be so hard to wrap your mind around that the way that you were taught and the way that you thought all your life and the way that everyone around you thinks maybe is not correct. That's just like amazing. You're an amazing parent. You're an amazing dad. You slayed. No notes. No notes. 10 out of 10. The intense consequences that this could have come with. Not only that, but like if you would have stayed and you would have been like, I accept you, but we obviously can't tell anyone else because that could get you killed. You left, which is an even bigger sacrifice. That's just, I think, how every parent should be. Okay, let's read some comments. You have saved your son's life. He knows that. It doesn't matter if you/he thinks he may have been able to hide it for the rest of his life. The stress would have hurt him and hurt those around him. You and your wife left your whole life behind you to build a future for him. He will never forget that, and it will carry forward for him. Yeah, because if they would have stayed, I was also going to say this, but I kind of forgot where I was going with that sentence. But if they would have stayed, like, the trauma that would have caused him, even if he knew his parents accepted him, having everyone else around you not accept you or, not be able to tell anyone else and have to suppress that part of yourself for the rest of your life would be just such immense trauma that I couldn't even imagine going through. Okay, the rest of this comment. So many gay people are rejected by their families. It leaves such a deep wound that often never fully heals, and you saved him from that. And if he doesn't know that now, he will. It also sounds like your wife feels more free. Do you? And then someone said, didn't you hear? We have no freedom here in Canada. Seriously, though, OP, well done. This is why we're a melting pot. So good people like you can escape and live better lives. You're more than welcome here, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. OP is the perfect example of how asylum policy should work. The issue is our governments often don't distinguish between OP and the people OP describes. OP is welcome here. So are those who hold the views he escaped from. When should we tolerate intolerance? Tolerating intolerance gives you fascism. Look at the USA now. Too kind in its acceptance of all beliefs, including the fascist, intolerant ones. And here we are. Intolerance should never be tolerated, and the obligatory F Nazis belongs here. Got it, but in this case, the subject isn't Trump and Nazis. Understood, but that's what tolerance of intolerance gets you. Oh my god, there's so many intolerance. Blah, blah, blah. May there always be places of hope for those facing the intolerance. Bastions of freedom for those that walk to the beat of their own drum and are allowed freedom of expression. I don't know what that means, but I hate that this was necessary, but I love that you did it. This is what fatherhood is. Thank you for doing what was best for your son. You did what a parent should do. Never be ashamed of that. I personally refuse to believe in a God that intentionally puts people on earth to suffer and beg for love and forgiveness. I refuse to believe that. I refuse to worship that. Why would I spend years of my life worshiping something that is just waiting for me to mess up one thing, one time, so they can cast me into a fiery pit? That's ridiculous. You loved your son more than you loved yourself, and you made sacrifices to keep him safe and ensure this happiness. Never be ashamed of that. Opie said, I can say that. Presently, I agree. The God I pray, that's what Opie said, and then there's another comment that's responding to that original comment. It says, the God I praise and follow and believe isn't a God that hates or discriminates. That is a construct bestowed by people to keep themselves at the top. This is both one of the most beautiful and sad things I've read in a while. You're an amazing father for loving your son as much as you do. You're all very lucky to have each other. But yes, I agree with that, like the whole fiery pit thing. For me, it's like, it's so contradicting sometimes how humans preach that Jesus is so forgiving. Like, you sin, just ask for forgiveness and he'll forgive you. But then at the same time, like, they'll preach, but by the way, like, you should be living in fear every day because Jesus may be coming back today to get all of those people that deserve a place in heaven. So you better be scared out of your mind every day that you may end up going to hell, even though Jesus forgives. So, like, which is it? Does Jesus forgive or does Jesus want to send me into a fiery pit? You know what I mean? Like, and I know the answer. No one needs to tell me the answer. That's one thing that kind of bothers me is, like, I say my piece on religion and then people try to talk to me as if I don't have so much experience with religion. Like, they'll be like, oh, but this and this. And I'm like, trust me, like, I know, and I've made my decision and I've made my peace with the way that I stand in religion and how I feel about God and Jesus and that whole subject. And nothing's going to change my mind because I've lived my whole 27 years of life growing up very Christian and very religious and following blindly everything that the Bible and that the church leaders taught me, just to finally realize that it was all wrong. I think it's all wrong, and if you disagree, that's totally okay, and that is your prerogative, that is your journey. But my journey has led me here, and that is how I feel, and I truly feel like I have evolved in my way of thinking, and the way that I look at it is people that still think that God and Jesus would be this type of entity or whatever person, I don't know, spirit, that would throw these types of people in a fiery pit because you're gay or because this and that. I don't believe that. And I'm not judging anyone that is not on the same path or the same journey as I am. I'm just sharing my personal experience and sharing where I'm at and sharing what I think about that subject. Like, I'm just being honest. This next story is, I'm going to put a trigger warning for grape because and also unaliving as well. And like depression and mental health. This one's a heavy story. So if you're not in the mindset to listen to a heavy story right now, don't listen. But I love you. The title is, I found out my husband has been making life decisions based on his ex's unaliving note. Background on my husband, 34 male. He was a fat, lonely kid, often bullied, no friends. And then he met Maya, his first and only friend. Like my husband, Maya was also a misfit, came from a dysfunctional family, and they became best friends. When they were 15, Maya was gang raped by her stepsister's boyfriend and classmates. She was badly injured and was in a coma for 2 weeks. The rapists, as they were minor, weren't jailed, I believe. They got out with minor punishments. This is the story I have heard from my husband and my in-laws. Maya unalived herself right after she woke up and wrote only one letter of goodbye, which was addressed to my husband. I had never read this letter as I wanted to preserve his privacy, and it always felt too personal. On to my story. I have been noticing weird things about my husband for a while. 1, we had our first baby when we were 27. I wanted to wait a little before our second, but my husband wanted one when he turned 30. He would mumble things like, it has to be 30. It should be at 30. 2, at 30, I had my second kid, a girl, named her Maya, and now I often find him hugging her and crying, asking an infant if he is doing a good job at being a father. 3, we have to go on yearly vacations. Even when our kids were babies and we were busy, he forced us on vacations. 4, now that he's turning 35, he insists we buy a bigger house. Again, he keeps mumbling, the house is at 35. Well, I read the letter. It was laminated and filed. He keeps it in the safe along with other IMP docs, such as house property, etc. It was a very sweet letter. Basically thanked him for being there for her, and then she concluded it with wishing he lives this perfect life. Life where he graduates at 24, marries at 26, has babies at 27 and 30, moves to a big house at 35, and always goes on a fancy vacation, ending with him being 90, reading stories to his grandkids. She also tells him to be a good father and husband. If he ever gets tired, she wants him to think for her suffering because of her family. Now that I have read everything and know that my husband has been planning his entire life based on that letter, it feels so weird. I had to tell someone. I have a feeling that he took this a little bit more literally than she would have wanted. Like, I don't think that, in my opinion, she would be like disappointed if he didn't reach those milestones. I assume that she just was like, I hope you have, a marriage by the time you're 26 and a baby by the time you're 27, not like you need to do this or I'll be disappointed in you. I mean, I can understand because the trauma, I'm sure, like has led him to feeling this way or operating this way in his life. Obviously, that can be a really hard thing to go through, losing someone from suicide. And not only that, but like your only friend or your best friend and like the person that you grew up with and went through everything with, basically a family member to you. So I can understand that. And I can also understand where OP is coming from, feeling weird that he was making all of these decisions, because obviously you can't truly understand where he's coming from unless you went through the same exact life experience as him, right? Like you can't truly understand, even if you did lose your best friend, it would have had to be like the same exact story growing up, not having any friends and just having this one friend, and then, going through very similar events that he lived through and experiences that he lived through. But let's read some comments. Maya was clearly extremely important to him, and her death was traumatic. He probably felt he failed her considering what happened, and so much of what happened was out of his control, including the minor punishments that happened to the criminals. The perfect life outline was something within his control, though, so that's why he most likely grasped onto it with all his might and did his best to make it happen. You can consider it his way of redemption that, unlike what happened at 15, he didn't fail to meet her expectations this time. He wanted to make her wish come true. I think you should talk to him about Maya, as I think it would help with the grief he clearly is still feeling, and he should also look into counseling. That's a really good way to put it, because I'm sure, like, having someone so close to you, like losing someone to that over something that you felt like maybe you could have controlled if you would have known or something, because usually when you lose someone to suicide, it's like you always think of the things, what could I have done? Could I have saved them? Could I have helped in any way? But you truly like blame it on yourself a little bit. And I feel like I don't know, I definitely think it can lead to feeling so like out of control and just wanting to be able to control something in your life, which I feel like is why a lot of people in trauma or that go through trauma like end up having things like eating disorders, because usually when you feel like everything's out of your control, it's like your eating disorder. You can control that, and you can control that aspect of your life, so it makes you feel like better, but in reality it doesn't actually make you feel better. It's just like a coping mechanism that is not a healthy one. Would not recommend. Okay, this person said exactly this. I'm sure he feels guilty, feeling like he feels he failed to protect her from what happened to her is so sad. Yeah, he needs therapy, but the goals are pretty standard things, just that his motivation is a bit unique. So many people set age goals for the house, kids, etc., and he probably spoke with the girl about his goals and their plans together. I thought it was going to get weird, like he named the baby after her, or he thinks the baby was this girl reincarnated. Wait, he did. Did he not? He did name the baby after her. Yeah. But it's honestly a very sweet story. He just needs to process it all, kind of detach his wife and kids from the memory of this girl. This girl would obviously be insanely proud of him. He doesn't need to keep hitting goals and doing it for her. Maybe in my mind this is getting cinematic, lol, but he needs to have a final letting go process where he just shows her that he's done it all and she can rest easy knowing that she gave him that push in life and he has set up his life in the perfect way. He's done it and she doesn't need to keep watch anymore. She can give him some final approval and now he can tie his goals to trying to impress just his wife and kids. And someone responded and said, "Wait, am I missing something?" OP clarified further because in the post he did name the baby after her. Their names are both Maya, right? And he does talk to the infant and ask if he's doing a good job being a father like he's talking to Maya. Her second point is where I'm getting that. I'm not trying to be snarky at all either, so I apologize if it comes off that way. I'm truly confused by what she said in your response to that specific part. And then they responded and said, "Okay, yeah, that's weird. I actually missed that." Someone said, "It's absolutely weird. It's also beautiful and touching. He should go to therapy, though." Yeah, he should definitely go to therapy. That's for sure. Because living your life like for someone else, and yeah, the whole baby thing. I mean, I think it's fine to like name your kid after someone that you lose, but to then be like hugging her and crying and asking if you're being a good father as if you're speaking to her is definitely worrisome and scary because you shouldn't like to be putting all that weight onto your child who is for sure not reincarnated Maya. Like, even if you believe in reincarnation, I feel like there's no way you can believe that just because you name your kid the same name, that means that it's like a reincarnation of that person. So I feel like that's just not how reincarnation works. Like, honestly, I'm open to believing in reincarnation. Obviously, I don't know because I don't have any of those answers, but I don't think that's how it would work because if that's how it would work, that'd be kind of cool because then you could like pick who you like. Oh, you're going to be this person and you're going to be this person. I'm going to make you the King of England and then you're going to be, I don't even know, but a famous pop star. So I hope that he doesn't think that, but I'm assuming if he's talking to her like that, he thinks that is, and that's kind of scary. That's very scary, actually. But obviously, it's like that's trauma talking, and it's something that he can definitely work through. But he definitely needs a professional to help him with that. Hi, guys. Sorry to interrupt, but if you want extra content weekly, go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/storytimesociety. If you want to listen on Spotify because you're trying to fall asleep or you're driving, then head to the link in the description. And if you're there and you don't mind, please rate me 5 stars on there. It really helps with the algorithm. And then the last thing is we have a subreddit linked below. We have a lot of things linked below, but the subreddit, you can share any stories that you want to share. Okay, thanks. Love you guys. Okay, but anyways, that is my story time concluded. And we're going to move on to the advice segment of this episode. So if you ever want unprofessional advice from me, the link is below. It's a Google form and you can fill it out. Just give me as much details as possible and I'll try to help you as much as I can. Okay, this story says, how do I fully come to terms with one of my close friends being exposed for being a groomer and that they possibly groomed me as well? Full disclosure, it was not sexual grooming, and this person is now an ex-friend for obvious reasons. I won't go into too much detail about how they, let's call them B for ease, treated their victim, who I'll call V, as that's not my story to tell. For some basic info, B and V met when V was, I think, 12 or 13 and B was 19, and they only cut off contact a few months ago. B is now 24. V has struggled with an ED and emotionally abusive parents, and B would use that to their advantage. A person who I'll call W helped V come forward, and at least 3 other people came forward about B and how they treated them as well after. A little bit before B got exposed, they made some tweets on a private account about how they were not now getting falsely accused of grooming by W. More context here, I already had a dislike towards W, which, funnily enough, this situation resolved. And B knew this. In retrospect, I think B was literally trying to set me up to defend him when W made their public post about it. Initially, I was going to, as I had a hard time believing someone who I had been extremely close with for around 4 years would do that. But after reading what W and V had to say, which was accompanied by dozens of screenshots, screen recordings of voice notes, etc., to prove what had happened. I felt disgusted, and after reading what had been posted, I worked up the courage to reach out to W myself, sharing my experience. How B had attempted to turn me against my other friends and said things that encouraged me to stay upset with them for longer. How he dumped heavy emotional situations on me despite being fully aware of how young I was, how he would essentially threaten to harm himself if someone was upset with him. B and I's relationship had been completely recontextualized for me based on what V had gone through. B knew I was extremely emotionally attached to them, and despite the fact that I was 14 to 17 and they were 21 to 24, while we knew each other, they made no effort to discourage this or keep a healthy distance between us. I could suddenly see how B was attempting to isolate me. B had already said things to make me dislike V. Obviously, I don't dislike V anymore as I got more info than what B had twisted. And when I vent to them about another friend of mine doing something that frustrated me, they would compare that friend to V and sometimes W, knowing I didn't like them. I think subconsciously I knew something was off between B and V before everything was revealed to me, but what I saw made me nervous to upset B out of fear of getting cut off by someone I was extremely attached to. I'm definitely missing and forgetting things because I'm trying to keep things as anonymous as possible. So, honestly, if you need any more specific information, ask and I'll follow up. W and V's post about what happened was made months ago, the end of 2024. I can't remember exact dates, and I'm still shaken. I no longer get the sick feeling when thinking back on it, but I'm still unsure what I should be thinking about it. I'm sorry if this is confusing to read or seems all over the place. I'm frazzled thinking about it. Okay. So the original question is, how do I fully come to terms with one of my close friends being exposed for being a groomer and that they possibly groomed me as well? And I wish I could say that I have like a perfect answer for you or that I've gone through something similar that I can really truly like tell you my experience, but unfortunately I don't have like very similar experience with this, but I can say that it seems like you are slowly coming to terms with it and you're thinking about it and processing it, and I think that's this kind of thing takes a while to process, and I think that it's okay to let yourself process it and let yourself have as long as you want to process it. And of course it gets to the point where you just want to be done with it and be through with it and have like some closure on the situation. But I definitely feel like maybe a support group of some kind. I'm sure there are support groups for this type of thing. Maybe reaching out to the other victims as well and talking to them more and maybe finding support with them because they've gone through something similar as well, and you guys can like help each other process what you guys have gone through. I'm not sure if that's like an option or anything, but if it is, I think that would be a good option because obviously it's hard. You can talk to people close to you about it and you can try to process it that way, but it's a little bit harder when the person doesn't have experience with that specific situation. And I feel like it's definitely a lot easier to process a situation while talking through it with somebody that's been through the same thing. So, as I said, like a support group for something like this. I'm not really sure where you find that, but I'm sure there are online support groups, maybe in-person support groups about this kind of thing. But I wish I could help more with like resources with that. I'm sure you can look up online, and there's so much like there's so many resources out there for just mental health in general. And I think that like a group that is focused on dealing with similar things to the situation that you went to would be, or you went through, would be really helpful. And also a therapist. I always recommend therapy when going through something traumatic or when trying to process a traumatic situation. And I'll always say that I know that not everyone is privileged enough to be able to go to therapy, and that it's obviously an option that you may or may not be able to attain. But if you can, that would definitely help a lot. And I think that having a professional being able to walk you through and process everything that happened, and that would help you fully come to terms with the situation that happened. But I wish that I could help more, and I wish that I had more knowledge about this, but I don't want to, act like I know so much about this scenario when I truly don't. Like, of course, I've heard stories like this, but me not being able to say that I've had a similar experience, I feel like kind of takes away from the weight of my advice. So I always recommend, like, in that situation, and honestly, in any situation where you're dealing with something like this, even if it's something that I've been through, like an eating disorder or something like traumatic, I always recommend like professional mental health counseling, because I think that is truly the only thing that can really help. Like, even if I did know what to say in this situation and really like good advice on how to help, I still think that even with my advice, you should still consider going to a support group or talking to people that have gone through something similar and talking to a professional about it, because I think that's truly the only way that you can fully process in a healthy manner and not just develop maybe like unhealthy coping mechanisms with this type of situation. But I love you, and I hope that you're okay, and I hope that everything goes well, and I hope that you can find some closure in that situation. I'm going to move on to another advice question. This one says, I need advice on how to support my friend, but also tell her that I'm worried about her. Hi, Jamie. I've been a fan for a while, and I love the show. This is my first time writing in. I'm 24 female, and my friend is also 24 female. Her boyfriend is 36 male, and they've been together for about 6 months. They met on a dating app. She has a pattern of getting into relationships that aren't good for her and staying for a long time before she realizes what's going on. And every time she gets into a relationship, she becomes more distant. I was watching an episode to your show when she texted in the group chat with my other friend, also 24 female, that she has decided to move to St. Louis, Missouri with her boyfriend. To be honest, I was very blindsided and a little bit hurt because I didn't even know she was planning on moving at all, let alone across the country. We both currently live in the Southwest U.S. We've been friends for a while, and I love her a lot. I can't help but worry that this older man is manipulating her and isolating her. She says she is moving to be closer to her family, but her family is still pretty far away from where they are moving. It concerns me also that they've only been together for 6 months, and I haven't even met him. My other friend, the one from the group chat, who is also my best friend, met him for only a few minutes and did not get a good read on him. I know I will not be changing her mind about moving, as she has already signed a lease in St. Louis, but how do I express to her that I'm worried about her? She has also told us about how he can be angry and has yelled at her, but she seemed to gloss over the bad parts of their relationship and only wanted to talk about the good. I don't even know if I'll be able to see her before they move, because they're moving in about a week. I want to see her and make sure she's okay before she's stuck in a lease with this man across the country. Any advice would be appreciated. Thanks, you're the best. Thank you so much for writing in. The first thing that comes to mind when I'm reading this story is that this friend of yours, while she might not want to open up right now, I feel like the best thing that you can do first and foremost is to truly assure her and let her know that, number one, you're worried about her and you're worried about the situation. Just like let her know that. Don't be like, you need to do this and do this. Like, don't try to tell her what to do, obviously, because as you said, like, you're not going to be changing her mind. This is unfortunately a situation that she is going to have to go through and learn to come out on the other side. But I think the biggest thing that you could tell her is that you're always going to be here to support her, and you're always going to be there to listen to her if she needs someone to talk to about this or about anything that she's going through within this relationship or anything in her life. And just like let her know that you're going to be there if she needs someone to talk to. That way she doesn't feel like she has to close off anything to you. And if things truly do get like super rocky with this situation, she will come to you about it, and she won't feel like you're going to judge her. Because that's the biggest thing. I feel like when people go through relationships like this that are toxic or unhealthy or maybe even abusive, the people that they feel like are going to judge them about the situation, they're not going to end up opening up to those people, and then they're going to suffer in silence, and that's like the worst possible thing. And I know that it can be hard because obviously you want the best for your friends, so you want to be like, oh my God, don't do this. This is so stupid. But it's like, you just can't say those things, and you just have to be as supportive as possible so that they keep opening up to you, and you can have, like, you can be privy to the information and what she's going through. And that's honestly like the biggest thing that I can say. I think that's the only thing that you can do right now. Keep in touch as much as possible with her and try to like get updates from her and try to really just stay in touch with her and always let her know that you're there for her if she ever needs an ear or if she ever needs like anything that you can offer her. But yeah, I hope that helps a little bit. I'm not too, I mean, I guess I have definitely been through things like this with my friends. And honestly, the biggest thing that I've always offered to my friends is an ear. Like when my friend was going through an abusive situation, I always tried to give her a little bit of advice without sounding like I'm judging her, just like nicely give her advice because she really was like going through it with this man, and she would call me for hours every single day, and she would just be bawling, and she would be just like venting. And I knew that there was nothing I could do to truly talk her out of this relationship, and that this was just something that she was going to have to go through to learn that this wasn't the best thing. And she did. She went through that, and she ended up like after a while, and when she was out of that relationship, she came back, like she came to me and was like, you were right, like I shouldn't have been in that relationship. And all of just like, obviously I told her like that I think she deserved better and stuff, but I always tried to just not be judgmental. And not to say that I didn't feel, because honestly, it was a lot. It was a lot of trauma dumping in this situation. It was a lot of like me always answering the phone. And I know that in some instances, in some circumstances, that's not that healthy to do. But I have this issue where I don't like not answering the phone to my friends when they need something. So I always answer the phone. And I feel like if someone needs to vent, I need to listen. And if someone needs to trauma dump, I need to listen. And I know that that's not the healthiest thing. I talked to my therapist about it when it was happening because I was going to therapy at the time. And she told me that. And, it was just something that is really hard for me to not support my friends through that kind of situation, just because I'm like, God forbid something happen and I feel like it's my fault. So I'm not gonna lie. Would I talk to my boyfriend and my therapist about this situation and kind of complain about having to sit on the phone for hours and hours every day and just listen to the same thing over and over again, even though she's not changing anything about the situation? Yes, I did. And I think that's fine. Like, I think that I was trying to help her, but in that situation, I was helping her while also like hurting myself because I was just being like trauma dumped on. And then I felt like I couldn't talk to her about stuff because she was going through all of this. And I'm like, I don't want to dump on her. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm sure a lot of you have experienced similar friendships. I feel like so many of my friendships are that way, where I feel like they are always dumping on me, and I can never talk to them about things because they just don't listen. In a lot of my friendships, I've experienced that, where like they will be talking to me for hours and I will be giving advice. I'll be listening. I'll be, offering whatever wisdom I possibly can. And then as soon as it's like, okay, that conversation's over, now I can tell you something that I've been going through. It's like they're not even listening. They're completely zoned out. They're done. They're like, I got that out, so I don't really feel like listening to you. I've had multiple friendships like that, and it can be very draining at times, honestly. I don't even know what my point is with that, but it can be very draining, and it was very draining. And I still have friends. I mean, I still am friends with them. It's just like not as it was because we're not as close anymore. So they don't. And honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I'm kind of moved on from those friendships while I'm still friends with them. It brought a lot of negativity to my life, and I tried to help as much as possible. But then I felt like so much of it was just like coming back to hurt me. Like, I would be there, but then specifically this one friend, I would be there for her so much every day, hours of calls, hours of talking about this same situation over and over again. And then on the other hand, like, she would be a bitch to me. Like, we're so reactive, which I can understand because she was going through so much and it was like an abusive situation. So I can understand why that was like the side of her I was getting, but it just hurt because I was so there for her all the time. And then I all I got in return was like her trauma dumping on me and then her also treating me like shit. So yeah, that honestly, I'm sorry. I just like totally went into a tangent with that. And that has nothing to do with your story at all. But I hope the advice I gave was like good enough and it helped. It's going to help in some way. But that was kind of all I really had to offer. And then I kind of just wanted to share with you something similar that I went through because I kind of like realized I did go through something like that. But I don't know if your friend talks to you a lot about these things. I assume she told you that she only or you said that she only really talks about the good things. So I assume that she doesn't really vent to you about that. But yeah, my biggest advice would just be to make her comfortable sharing that kind of information with you. And yeah. Anyways, yeah, I love you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I will talk to you in the next episode. And if you haven't already, please press the subscribe button and comment down below what you thought about these stories. I don't know if I already said that or not, but I love you guys, and talk to you in the next episode. Bye! Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.